You are now listening to Fight Life Unfiltered. Fucking rolling. What's up, dude?
What's up, man?
Been hearing your name a hell of a lot.
Yeah, must mean I'm doing something right.
You certainly are doing something right. Lucas has mentioned you a bunch, and I was like, I got to check this dude out. And then I mentioned you up in Zealy, and Mike Wilkins pulled me aside and was like, listen, this dude could easily go and win Blue Belt Worlds, which was something that you had told me the day before. And then they were telling me your background in wrestling, and then all of a sudden the news drops with 247, and I'm like, this is all perfect timing to have him on the pod. So
Yeah, man. I appreciate Mike a lot, just working,
yeah.
just trying to keep going, trying to get to the top.
So Lucas is like just had so much great shit to say about you. But I want to dive in, like, Fairmont State national champ, 14-0 during the regular season, 4-0 in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Outstanding wrestler award for the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a goal at the beginning of the year, or is national champ at the collegiate level something that kind of transpires over time and you just kind of are taking it a match at a time?
I think, like growing up, we were always watching college wrestling. Like my dad was a big fan, and we were always watching college wrestling. So it was kind of always in my mind that an NCAA title was something that I was working for. And state titles were along the way, and all that other stuff was kind of along the way, But an NCAA title was always on the forefront. And when I transferred, I knew that I had something for Division II. I knew I had something for Division I too, but after I transferred, I knew that I was really gonna have something for D2. And there was a lot of stuff going on. Like, we had a coaching change after I transferred. So we had a new coach come in. A friend of mine, Zeke, was one of my coaches. He was one of the assistants, and he had left, and it was just kind of a whirlwind of stuff going on. But I just knew that I had to make sure I stayed on course, and that if I just got out on the mat, that it was going to take care of itself, and I was just going to keep trying to a little bit better every day.
Did you wrestle in the state of West Virginia?
Yeah.
Growing up?
Yeah, Parkersburg, West Virginia.
Parkersburg.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you do in high school? Were you like a dominant force to be reckoned with?
So I was on my high school wrestling program is kind of like a dynasty, right? So we were at the very top of the state, and like we were number 5 in the country at one point in my senior year.
Oh,
we had a lot of hammers on the team. Looking back on it now, there was 2 Division II NCAA champs on the team. There was 1 2-time Division I All-American. There was a junior world champ, and then a few other Division I starters that are wrestling Division I right now. So, it was kind of like tough waters,
Yeah. Iron sharpens iron.
Sink or swim,
Yeah.
So I had to make sure I was swimming. And, we had a tough schedule, and I just made sure I competed a lot. And was a 3-time state champ, high school All-American at Flow Nationals. Got recruited during my junior year after Flow Nationals. I wrestled this guy, Julian Klebov.
Yeah.
Who, like, wrestling heads know that name. He wrestles Arizona State right now. He was number 1 in the country or something like that when I wrestled him, and I gave him a match, and then I started getting recruited. And I knew then that college wrestling was for me, and just had to keep doing what I was doing, listen to my coaches. My high school coaches were a big deal for me. They still are. I still keep in touch with Coach Smith.
That's awesome.
What do you think, as like a West Virginia wrestler in high school and middle school and elementary school, what kind of chip does that put on your shoulder? Like, what does it do for you?
Dude, it felt like at every tournament that everybody was always overlooking me. So it kind of felt like I always had to prove myself. Like, I would go to tournaments, even when I was in like junior high. I would go to a tournament, and I would just, run through a guy first round, second round, and their coach or their dad or whatever would go up to my dad and be like, "Hey man, like we were overlooking you." Literally just right to his face, like we were overlooking you because you're from West Virginia and you're tough. And that just kind of always stuck with me, especially even when I was at Fairmont. Like at the NCAA tournament after the finals, I go get interviewed, and the guy's like, "Do you have a chip on your shoulder?" And I told him no, but I always did subconsciously.
Yeah.
Like I didn't like consciously have a chip. Like I gotta go out here and prove myself. But like subconsciously, like every single day, like I was like, I'm not supposed to be that guy, you know?
I mean, there are very few wrestlers that come from, like, I feel like guys that are supposed to be the man,
Mhm.
it doesn't pan out all the time. And if it does, I mean, you must be extremely mentally tough and have a whole nother motivating factor. But it seems like guys like yourself that come from that, right? It's probably a little bit too, like Ohio, Pennsylvania. I'll give West Virginia their props, right? But it's like people from those states, there's not a whole lot of like exciting shit going on. And so it kind of crafts you into that type of mentality.
Yeah, I think like to speak like knowing Luke's story, like I mean we can go into the bar stool like 40-pound champ
Yeah.
thing they mentioned. He was like a youth superstar, you know what I mean? And a lot of
You're downplaying how successful you were. I mean, 3-time state champ in high school, Flow national champ.
3-time state champ, 4-time finalist, right?
No, I lost in the semis. I got pinned
What
by
year in high school?
my freshman year.
Wait, like
I graduated in 18, but I got pinned in the semis my freshman year by Josh Humphreys, who ended up transferring to my school my senior year. He was an All-American at Lehigh, 2-time All-American. A great friend of mine. And yeah, you know, I grew up wrestling hard. Like I was competing all the time. My dad was taking me to camps. Like that's kind of like something that I carry into fighting, right? So like I know what I need to do. Like I know what it takes to like be successful in something like that.
I would imagine, especially in amateur, where guys are like, "Hey, I want to be a fighter," right? They have not had to compete the way that you've competed, prepared the way that you've had to prepare. Do you feel that advantage like tangibly when you step out there right now?
I think that helps me more for my nerves. Like I don't feel as nervous because like I'm confident in the preparation.
You know, you've been there before.
I've been there before. Like I wrestled in the national finals. Like I know what it's like to be on a stage,
Yeah.
you know? And I think I just grew up like hard wrestling. Like I was never the best guy in the room. And my dad made sure of that. Because if I was the best guy in the room, you know, you're in the wrong place. So we would go up to Jeff Jordan's. We would go here and there. I'll go to school, practice after school. And then I'm getting in my dad's truck and we're driving a couple hours somewhere to go get beat. And we would go wrestle, like competition tournaments, whatever. I'd lose to a guy. My dad would go up to him and be like, "Hey man, where do you train? We'll come find you."
How did you balance, or how did your parents balance with you the burnout factor? So like I was saying, my oldest is 5, right? Got him into jiu-jitsu a year ago. So he's a year in, loves it. 3 days a week, right? Which for all intents and purposes is not a lot. Like he still has a lot of other things outside of jiu-jitsu, but he loves jiu-jitsu. I love jiu-jitsu. I love that he loves it. I don't want to force him to do something that he doesn't love. But when he's like, "Hey, I don't want to go to class," I'm like, "You got to go to class today," right? Every once in a while, I'm like, you know what? I've tried to be like, I don't want him to hate it because right now he doesn't recognize the advantage that he has. He has a dad that loves it. He's got an academy here with Stout that's got the resources, the coaches, the team, the kids around it. It's like, dude, if you stick with this, with your athleticism, your mind, the support you have with your family, the coaches, you could be great. But my fear is that he's going to hate it by the time that comes around and doesn't want to do that.
I think I was just hungry as shit. Like I was a rat. Like they couldn't keep me out of it, you know? And anytime that I wanted to stay out, like I would be like, "Oh, practice, like I don't want to go." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My dad would just be like, "Okay, don't." But when you lose,
so it was all
like,
inside of you. It wasn't something that your parents had to like push you to.
But they did a good job of just being like, "Okay, but like that's on you." You know, and that's why I love wrestling so much. And like fighting, it's like it's one-on-one.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have to like. There's nobody I can point a finger at when I lose, other than me. You know, so whenever I would lose, I would like be pissed off. I'm super competitive, like super competitive. So when I would lose, even when I was little, like I would be like, "Why?" you know, why didn't I win this? Like, what's wrong? My dad would be like, well, you remember that day, blah, 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 ago that you didn't want to go to practice and you didn't go? Like, that's a edge that he had over you.
I wonder if your dad knew subconsciously that, like, because it sounds like, to your point, driving you hours away, he didn't want you to have it easy. He wanted you to have it tough. And I wonder if he had the foresight to know, like, yeah, I'll tell you, you don't have to go to class or go to your training today, because when you do inevitably lose, I'm going to be able to point back to that and remind you that those moments were what was the separation.
Yeah. And that's super, super smart on his part. But I was just, they knew I was hungry. Like, even when I was like 3 or 4 years old. My dad was a youth wrestling coach at the time, and he would take me to practice, like, just to like not have a babysitter, you know. And I would go to practice, and when they stopped taking me, like when I didn't go, like I would be like, "What's going on? Like, why am I not going to wrestling practice?" I would cry and cry and cry, and be like, "I have to go." And then I just kind of like instilled like wrestling in like my DNA, like in my blood, and that I just found success early, and I think that was a big deal for me to want to keep going. Like, I found success early. You know, like I had the record or tied the record for like wrestling junior state titles in West Virginia. So I was winning a lot, but we made sure I lost. Like, they made sure they took me somewhere, find somebody better than me, and that was that. And I knew bar was always set.
Yeah.
And I was around a bunch of good wrestlers too, so I was never going to be the weak link. Like, I was like, we were the type of like friend group too, wrestling, where like you go to a tournament and you get fourth, like they're looking at you like you got fourth, scrub, you know. And I'll be like, that's not me, dude. I'm winning. Like, they're not gonna look at me like that. I'm not the weak link, you know. So it was just competition. It was always competition.
You've spent a lot of time on the mats with him.
Yeah.
When you wrestle him, and just thinking back on all the times you have, what is it that stands out to you that separates him? Obviously mindset, mentality, but like from an actual wrestling skill, how he wrestles, like what is it that's the separation?
I think like just poise, I guess, for lack of a better terms. He's just like, you know, he's in and out. He's got his like moves, and you'll know what he's gonna do, and he'll still hit you.
That's it. That's another thing that I learned from Jeff Jordan, was like, you gotta be able to look at somebody, tell you what you're gonna do to them, and still do it.
Don't matter.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you get good.
Yeah, I think Luke's like special. And I think one of the reasons like me and Luke, like, you know, train so well together is we're just cut from the same cloth. You know what I mean? Like, Luke was like a super successful younger wrestler, right? Like junior high champ and stuff. But I think he always had a chip on his shoulder, and he still carries that chip on his shoulder because he's from West Virginia. And, you know, there's not like, you see him in his bracket, even if he's a former All-American, or he's like, people just like, they look at you a certain way. So he still carries it with him. And then like me, I always had that, like, I was always just like, I would get second at a tournament, or I would get third at a tournament. It was like never winning stuff. And I think like that instills something into you. And then I think when you go on and you're doing it for the love of the game, rather than like just because you're successful, like we both just love it. You know what I mean? Like, I loved wrestling. I wouldn't have continued to wrestle when I wasn't having success at like West Virginia if I didn't just love it.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have left and found wrestling again if he didn't absolutely love it. So I think that's something like, now that we're fighting, it's like we love it. Like it's that like Penn State mentality was like, I get to go to practice today. You know what I mean? Rather than like, you know, woe is me, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I like being able to get to go to practice. I think that's something like me and him share in mentality. I think that's why we have success.
It's got to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, we've talked about that a couple of different times on here. Like, fighting is the wrong place to be if you don't actually enjoy it. It's a horrible way to make a living.
You're gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what it boils down to. Like, if you don't love it and like you're not here for the right reasons, like you're gonna find yourself getting hurt, and you'll be out there in that cage with somebody who loves it, and they're gonna run right through you.
That's something I had to learn. Like, because I didn't wrestle. I wrestled. Take that back. I have a 3rd place trophy from the Shingle House tournament. At Shingle House, Pennsylvania. I wrestled when I was like 6 years old, I did one tournament, and I don't know, I didn't like it. And I don't know if it was that I didn't like it. My parents, I didn't come from a wrestling family, and I came from a baseball family, and played all other sports. So I was just like, okay, this isn't my thing. Looking back, man, I wish I would have stayed in those rooms, because now I'm like addicted to grappling. But even just getting into that, like I was always felt like I had a gritty, tough, just because of all the boys and the fighting. Like it was a naturally chippy environment that I grew up in. So it was never like soft. But I remember the first time that I got into grappling, and like I have some neck issues and just wear and tear, normal shit, right? And being like, oh, I got to be careful, like doing this or doing that. And that would be when I would get hurt.
Yeah.
And I realized after a while, it was just like, go in there. You can't be thinking about anything other than what you're doing and enjoying it while you're doing it. And if you're not going to enjoy it, this is not something that you're going to be able to continue to do for years and years. And now, like, I think back on that, it's like, there's no way 5 years later that I'd still be, even at my age, like getting out here and trying to find time to make my way to the mats, because it's just like, it wears on.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of our teammates, Jesse Suda, he sent me something. It was on Instagram. It was a video. It was this guy, he was explaining how his son, like they went to a soccer match, and they were like, it was a travel team. They didn't know. And it was like, dude, these kids are whooping everybody's ass. And he was talking about the difference of being interested in something, being committed to something, and being obsessed with something. And I think like the obsession is you're gonna figure it out. If you're obsessed with it, you're gonna figure it out. It eats you alive. You know what I mean? Like you can't go on throughout your day without thinking about it. You can't sleep at night. You're daydreaming about wrestling or fighting or techniques, or you're hitting these moves, or even like what you're gonna say on the mic, or like it's this like obsession. And I think you only meet a couple people in your life that have the same obsession at the same time that you do. And I think sometimes like mentors are people that are like, yo, I was that kid before.
Yeah.
I think Mike sees it in me and Luke. He's like, yo, they had the same thing that I had when I was 24.
I can tell you have it, because it's in everything though that you do.
Yeah.
It might be focused in one thing, but like, dude, I've said this to my brother. You messaged me. It was like, we did the podcast on Saturday. The next day, you're like, hey, did you listen to the podcast? Like,
Yeah.
everything that you do, you're just like the expectation, right? And this is probably the third time in the last 2 days I've talked about this, but I saw a video of Nick Saban. I'm like a big Saban.
Me too.
Just
I love
he's
Saban,
been
dude.
talking about that.
Fucking love Nick
Yeah, I
Saban,
love
bro.
Saban.
Like I'm just
West
like,
Virginia boy.
I can't get enough of that.
Yeah,
guy.
Fairmont.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no shit.
Mhm.
Makes sense, right? He I saw him talking. He's like, you can be 5 things in this world. He's like, you can be bad, you can be average, you can be good. And he's like, good is probably what God expects of you based on what he gives you. He's like, you can be excellent, or you can be elite. And he's like, and if you want to be
Saving
excellent
your
or
elite.
elite, it requires some very, very over the top personality traits. I'm butchering what he says, but it's basically like, you have to be like obsessively committed. You have to be ruthlessly introspective. You have to be like, he just went down this list, and it was just like, man, he's so right. And I think about it, just it's motivating to me, but then I see people, nothing bothers me more than people who think that they're like, oh, like, woe is me, I can't lose weight, or it's just like, how hard you try. Now, I've also been somebody with the mindset of the hardest thing you've ever done is the hardest thing you've ever done. So if somebody has not gone through what you've gone through, maybe running a mile is as hard for them as you coming out and training for a national championship, because it's all perspective.
Yeah, it's all perspective.
But the reality is, you're giving up at 80% left in the tank, where you're fucking taking that thing all the way down to the fumes, right? And that is that difference. That's what makes excellence, eliteness. And man, I'm glad. I love that you love Saban, dude. Like I literally, I fucking fire off so many. I'm surprised Instagram hasn't blocked me, because I send so many damn Nick Saban videos to people.
Saban's fire, dude. All of his
He's got some good quotes.
yeah. So you just like YouTube like
Mediocre
David.
people do not like high achievers. High
Yeah.
achievers do not like
That's
mediocre
I
people.
think that's that's basically what we're saying. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
shit,
Like
dude.
sometimes I'm like I remember I was talking to the team after practice one day and I was saying something about like effort and whatever. And then I was like in my head it just clicked. I was like, oh, like some of you guys just aren't on the same level.
Yeah.
And you texted me and you were like, I just don't get it. You're like, I
Yeah.
don't get it. And I was like, oh yeah, it's because me and you are on the same wavelength. You know what I mean? And that's okay. And like people have like ins and outs and stuff, but
Yeah.
like cream rise to the top.
When
you
you
know
have
what I mean?
people that then you can pick these people out instantly because they'll focus on individual things. Like I fucked this up. You're mad at me because I didn't do this right.
Mhm.
Like I didn't wrestle, but like baseball competitively, state championship teams for
Mhm.
Legion, like we were finalists, played on a lot of high level. I played collegiately. You could strike out 4 times in a row in a game. I'd be the first one to be there to pick you up and not criticize you,
Mhm.
you know, tell you, hey man, like shake it off. If you were the guy that shared the same mentality with me.
Mhm.
But if you fucking struck out and you were the person that was like, oh, Wednesday, I can't come because like I have to go back home. My brother's got his thing. It's just like,
It's always something.
I have no time for you because nobody's ever going to be perfect.
Mhm.
And so I know that nobody's ever going to be perfect. And so if you're not willing to try to be perfect, when you fuck up, I'm instantly thinking like you cut corners and that's why you fucked up.
Yeah,
You know, it's like,
I think it comes with high expectations, right?
Yeah.
Like if you expect a certain level from yourself, like you're gonna do the right things to perform to that expectation. But if you're somebody that's like,
Content.
content, like you're just content with being okay, like, and that's okay. Do your thing. But we are not the same.
yeah,
Like we are different. Like
Yeah.
Lucas, me, a couple other guys, like we're not the same as you. Do your thing though. But
Yeah, and it's good to have people like, you know what I mean? If you look at all 3 of those categories, none of them are like bad. It's like
Yeah.
interested, like being interested and it's good. Like those are the
Yeah.
people that are like, you know what I mean? They're there and they're like, you know, bodies in a room and like they're good. They're putting the skills, they're coming. You know what I mean?
No, and that's great.
But like the obsessed people are what's gonna rise to the top. And it doesn't like you can flip the switch. Like I remember in college, I was like, I was just like, I was committed. Like I was like, there's interested, committed, and obsessed. I was committed. Like I was like, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna be in the room. And then I remember just being lonely and like coming during the summer one year and just becoming like just obsessed with it. Like everything I ate, everything I did, everything I thought about was about wrestling.
So
And
hungry.
I just flipped the switch. You know what I mean?
I think I flipped that switch when I transferred.
Yeah.
Like I was hungry at West Virginia, but when I transferred, like I knew that, this is probably my last shot. Like this is probably my last shot. And I knew I wanted to leave my mark on the game. And like wrestling gave so much to me.
yeah.
And I knew I wanted to leave a mark on it one way or another. And I had to lock in. And I did that.
Yeah, I
So-
remember that year too. Like I remember visually seeing it. Like I remember us, like the friend group. Like we were at WVU, it was COVID year, right? And
Yeah.
then you won it in 21. So the COVID year was like we go out, we'd have a good time, and it was like once like January hit, it was like I remember having a conversation with Luke and just being like remember I actually remember like him being like he's different. You know what I mean? And it seemed like he flipped the switch. And in that, first off, like he was kind of wrestling up a weight in a way. Like he was at
Wrestled
49, he was like
So yeah, you were.
he was like 47, and he just didn't give a fuck. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? He was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it works out. I don't really have to cut weight. Right. And then he went and at regionals won it, right? You won it at regionals. Didn't you upset Ely, right?
So I beat number 6 and number 2 at regionals. So when I transferred, I kind of like was off the grid for a little bit, and I had a lot of stuff going on like internally, and just had to figure out what I wanted and what my next step was going to be. And originally the plan was not wrestle. Like I was just gonna chill, just be a 20-year-old kid, whatever, and just fucking ate me up. Like just seeing wrestling, I couldn't even watch wrestling. Like everything that was happening, I was just like, dude, get it away from me. Like I cannot see that right now for like 6 months. And then my friend got hired at Fairmont State, and then I ended up wrestling again. And when I said I was going to wrestle again, I told him like, I'm in, but I need you to be in. Like, I need you to be in because I'm all the way in. I'm coming for a national title. Like, I'm not coming to just be a guy on the team, make the tournament, whatever. I'm coming to be back. And I came back and did all the right things and everything like that. But I was quiet for a year. I redshirted that first year at Fairmont and was quiet. Like, wasn't really active on like social media or anything like that.
Putting the work in.
I was just real low key, like just off the grid. And then when I came back for regionals that year, I was just like, nobody knows who I am, completely off the radar, but I'm back though. And had like, it's kind of like, I hate to compare it to this, but it's like, in Batman Begins, whenever he like goes away and then like goes hard and then comes back and he's like, now he's Batman. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how it felt. Like, I came back, wrestled, and then I beat like number 6. I beat number 6 in the country in the semis, and then I beat number 2 in the country in the finals, and kind of just like controlled both of them. And I knew then after that tournament that I was like, I have a real shot at winning nationals. And it goes into another crazy story. So after regionals, there was COVID test, right? It was COVID year. Nobody on my team took the COVID test. So I didn't have anybody to train with for like 2 weeks going into nationals. So it was just me and my coach solo. And we weren't really even wrestling. I was just kind of shadow wrestling.
That's wild.
Hitting bike
So they didn't
workouts.
is it because
They chose not
They
to.
chose
So
not
that's
to.
the difference. That's the difference. Obsessed. Interesting.
Well,
so because they were done.
they were done. Their season's
Yeah.
over.
So
right?
then they were
So-
like, fuck, I don't take the test.
I don't wanna go to
then I don't have
practice.
to go to practice.
And another part of that was they're going to practice. They know they got to work out with me, who wants to win a national title. So that's not just wrestling practice. That's like, I'm about to try to rip your head off for like 2 hours, and then I'm trying to win a national title. You know what I mean? And those dudes just, I mean, respect to them, you know, love a lot of those guys, but that's just different, you know? And
Yeah.
so that meant that I had to like do a lot of stuff by myself. And that was bike workouts, that was road work, that was shadow wrestling, which I think really helped me a lot because it helped me visualize. Like, I'm shadow wrestling in the room by myself. There's nobody else in there.
As opposed to having somebody else dictating their
Yes.
responses to you in a way that probably wouldn't have been as important.
Yes, it was me shadow wrestling. I'm visualizing myself running out to the mat, national finals, getting up on the stage, and like the mat, like even the mat alone. This is something that really helped me like kind of manifest it. So like the mat, the NCAA finals mat is the same mat they use for Division I, like, and it's kind of a big deal, right? So I remember watching people wrestle on that mat when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, and all I could think about was like, I'm wrestling on that mat. Like, nobody's gonna take that away from me. And if they try, then they're just going to get beat.
Is there any better feeling than standing up there knowing you've accomplished what you had been thinking about for so long, like that you manifested into reality?
I think more for me, like, it was more like just like people that helped me get there. Like, that was the first thing I thought about. Like, I won nationals, and all I could just think about was like, dude, everything that other people poured into me from coaches, you know, my parents, like my dad driving me fucking here and there and everywhere, like, all of that stuff, like, it just meant everything to me to just walk off the stage and just be like, dude, like, we did that. Like, that wasn't just me, like, we did that.
Mhm.
And he was just like, no, man. He's like, you wrestled your ass off. And I was just like, dude, we went through so much to get here. Like, you think about all of the, you know, long ass nights, like when I was in between schools, where I'm just like, man, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I felt like I just gave up, it like broke almost. And I was just like, man, I gotta get this figured out. And like, even in high school, you lose, like, you think you're this, like, blah, 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 blah. And then it just all culminates into that one moment where, like, I'm getting my hand raised on the NCAA finals mat, and it was just all worth it. Everything was worth it. All the tears, all the injuries, all the adversity, all the people that fucking were talking shit, like, all the people that forgot about me when I transferred, like, all of it. Like, that was just,
Yeah.
it was just an incredible moment. And then even more than that, like, to get that OW at the NCAA tournament, like, that was unreal. Like, I knew I wrestled my ass off. I didn't give up a takedown. I didn't give up points. Like, I just beat everybody and left my stamp on it. And after it, I was like, oh, I don't care if they give me the OW. I just want NCAAs. You know, and then they were like, OW, Lucas Martin, Fairmont State. I was like, man, that's crazy, especially for Fairmont State. Because they were a second-year program when I won nationals.
Wow.
Second-year program. We didn't have a wrestling room. Like, people don't understand that. Like, I got it like straight out of the mud. Like, we did not have a wrestling room. I did not have training partners after regionals. Like,
I think like,
We barely had gear. Like,
do you think it takes that? Like, do you think like think of like a movie, like you think of like Rocky or whatever, like there's always a moment in a movie where it's like shit hit the fan, you're down on your luck, and you got to get it out the mud. And I think like anybody that's super successful or anybody that has one of those stories, like there's a moment where it's like you fucking either gave up on yourself or life did you wrong, and then it's that rebuilding period. And that rebuilding period makes you.
mhm.
It makes
And,
you or
like,
breaks you.
Yeah, it does. It
Yeah.
does. And I think like all the people I know, all my friends that are successful or are having success had that. They had that like that period in time. They had that period in time where it's like, yo, like I might not fucking make it. And I
Yeah.
think like, some people are just like it they figure it out.
It instilled like a different level of hunger in me. So like I'm talking about we did not have a wrestling room. We were moving the bleachers in the Feaster Center. I was rolling the mat out, mopping it before practice, busting my ass on it,
Yeah.
mopping it again, and rolling it up.
Yeah.
Nobody else was doing that. Like nobody else is doing that. So when I went to nationals and you're in a tough match,
You care more. You're obsessed.
like
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You had
like,
to do that
yes,
shit.
I had to because
Yeah.
that's just what it was, and that's just
Yeah.
I could have sat around. It would be easy for me to just be like, oh,
What
man,
was me? Yeah.
ooh, like oh, I had to roll the mats out. They got all this gear, like they got the nice singlet, like blah 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 blah. Like
Mhm.
whatever, man.
Yeah.
Like that is what it is. Like I can't control that. Could I have went to a different school? Sure. Did
How
other
much
schools
is
set me
that-
up in the portal? Yeah.
How much has that program changed since you won the national title?
Well, they got a new coach. They got a wrestling room. They got
They should put your name on it.
they got a banner. They got a banner in the Feaster Center.
Luke Martin State.
They got a banner with my name on it in the gym, and that's nice for me to know. I left my mark.
Yeah.
But I think I hope personally, like I hope that kids in West Virginia that felt like they're overlooked, felt like they didn't have a chance. Maybe they went Division I first and it didn't work out, and that's okay. Like it's not for everybody. Like that, some things don't work out for you, and that's okay. You just gotta find a way to make it happen.
Mm.
And I hope that I gave kids like that hope. Like I can bounce back. Like I can bounce back and win a national title. I can bounce back and win the Outstanding Wrestler Award. I can bounce back and be a finalist for Division II Wrestler of the Year.
Mm.
Like that's what I hope. Like I hope that I left an impact.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you did. And like I think that success that you had in your wrestling career all stems from you being from West Virginia.
Yeah.
Like you having that chip on your shoulder from when you're 5 years old to now, and then it all culminated with you finally getting the respect you deserved and winning like a Outstanding Wrestler Award.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, finally, like it like, you know what I mean? Like I went out and I did it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Yeah, and it was like it was a full circle moment.
Yeah, exactly. It was
Yeah.
super full circle. And that's another thing that I'm bringing with me in the cage. Like you guys both watch the UFC, right? So
Yeah.
Who's from West Virginia in the UFC?
Nobody. I think it was
Is
one
there
person
anybody?
touched it.
I challenge anybody that's listening to this, like find a guy that's in the UFC from West Virginia
Yeah.
and has wins in the UFC and send them to me, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know of
And
anybody.
I want to be the first guy that's like, that dude came from West Virginia and
Yeah.
did that shit like on a big stage.
Yeah.
And I want other kids to like look at that and be like, man, I want to be a fighter, but I'm from West Virginia, man. We don't have gyms, like we don't have training, like blah 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 blah. And like I want them to see me and be like, you gotta go get that shit. Like nobody's gonna be like hand it to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
gotta go get that shit.
And then go find people like eventually, like at this time, there's not a gym in West Virginia where like in reality you would have been able to have the partners where you could propel your career and making it to the UFC. You went and found someplace here that you can. And eventually, and I don't know your goals, but I'm gonna venture to guess it would be to open a wrestling club or an MMA place in West Virginia.
Yeah.
In back home. And that is,
That's the culmination of the story.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's
right?
exactly what it is.
It's the end of my book,
Yeah.
hopefully. You know?
And the start of a new one for a
At
lot
the
of
start,
other
the start of
people,
the new
right?
one,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
What? So when did the fighting mind, like when did it click to you? Like, okay, was it in college and wrestling, or were you so focused on wrestling that that didn't even come into your mind until you finished?
It was in my mind. I knew I had flirted with the idea, like I was like, oh man, how cool would it be to be a fighter? Like we had talked about it in college, and I just was like, I flirted with the idea or whatever. And then I won nationals, and then it was like I could really like find success there, and you win nationals, and then some management people start hitting you up, and one thing leads to another. Next thing you know, I'm on a plane to Phoenix to train with people, and I'm like watching a UFC fight out there, and that was like my intro. And I was out there for like a week or however long, and training, and I was like, I like this. Like, let's see where this goes. And then I came back, and then I went to Colorado, and I was out in Denver at high altitude MMA and Genesis fight team. I was out there training with some like really tough dudes. Like I was training with this guy, Archie Colgan, who's I think he's like 10 or 11-0 in Bellator right now. He's like 9 knockouts, something crazy. He's a freak. And I was training with him, and I was like, man, I do like this. Like I really like this. And I came back, and then I was living at home in Parkersburg for a year, and I'm just like, I can't like, no like disrespect to like those guys, but like I didn't have no training partners. Like I didn't have anybody that was hungry like me.
Nobody was pushing you.
Nobody wanted to be a world champion. And I was like, I gotta go somewhere and find that. And I wanted to move to Colorado originally, but I just like, that's a big jump. Like that's like all the way across the country, and that's expensive. I was broke, and I had talked to Lucas, and Lucas had already moved here, and he was like, man, why don't you just move up here? And I was like, you're right. Why don't I just move there? And then I came up here and checked it out for like a day or two, and I was like, yeah, I'm moving there. Next thing you know, I got an apartment up here, and yeah, that was that.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. I'm here now.
And the Martian, where'd that come from? Was that something that's always been a nickname, or
No.
was it?
It was
Is
kind
it
of
because of the Anunnaki?
yeah.
Is it the Anunnakis of West Virginia?
No,
I
it
had
just
some
rolls off the
random
tongue.
weirdo tell me about the Anunnakis.
I don't know.
He
nothing
told me
about
he
the
saw
Anunnakis.
aliens on a mountain in West Virginia. Like, not to get sidetracked, but this story is actually fucking hysterical. And then we get back to, I want to finish getting into this fighting story. But I was in a band, and I've been into music my whole life, but I had taken several years off, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to start looking on Craigslist. Worst fucking idea possible. And I answered this ad. They were looking for a guitar player. I show up at this house, go into this fucking basement. And there's these like 3 middle-aged men, some lady sitting on a couch. And they were a little odd, but everybody that's in bands are typically odd. So I was like, all right, cool. We jammed a little bit. They were okay. I was like, yeah, this probably isn't for me, but I'll keep having fun. And this guy comes in, sits down next to the lady on the couch. They start making out. Like, oh, must be his girl. Like, okay, what's up? So we finished playing like 6 or 7 songs, and the drummer gets up from the drum kit, goes over. He starts making out with the girl. And I'm like, wait a second, wait, you guys. And I'm like, looking, and I'm like, yo, am I seeing shit? And the guy's like, no, we're polyamorous. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
And they're trying to tag you in.
So I'm like, hey, I gotta hit the road. Let me pack up my stuff. And the guy's like, yo, let me just show you a few things. Like I got album. Oh, dude, it got weird. He's like, I got album artwork upstairs I want to show you. And I'm like, okay, these guys could possibly kill me and eat me. So like, all right, yeah, sure, dude. Like, hey, dude, you want to unplug my amp and everything? So I like go upstairs, and the guy's like showing me this fucking artwork, and it's like aliens and shit. And I'm like, what's up with the aliens? And he's like, come here. He takes me over, and there's a picture framed on his wall, and it's just like a tree covered mountain or hill. I'm like, what is it? He's like, right there is where I saw the aliens. And I'm like, you saw aliens? And he's like, yeah, man. Straight up the Anunnaki. I'm like, okay. He's like, it was in the mountains of West Virginia. He's like, I was there. I saw them. They connected with my spirit. And I'm like, okay, dude. Well, listen, when are we gonna get back together? I fucking left, blocked their numbers, and never fucking went back.
Yeah, man, that's great. See you later.
So the Martian, like, where's it come from?
Nowhere. It's just kind
it's
of
a that dude. That is a
just rolled off the
badass
tongue.
nickname.
That's where it comes from. He meant that same dude.
I meant that same guy. I guess it could have been the Mothman. But
Yeah, Mothman would have been
Nah.
interesting.
Nah.
That's a wild.
yeah, no, it's better. It was just kind of random. Like my girlfriend just came up with it. And we
The
just
Martian.
rolled with it.
I love it.
I think it's sick. He's got a little logo and stuff.
Yeah, you can come up with some stuff like that's really what it was for. Just kind of
Yeah.
branding.
Yeah, it's good to have a brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he I mean, ever since he started fighting, I mean, shit. It was hard for him to get his first fight too.
Yeah.
He had
You had two of them that canceled, right?
My first one, I broke my hand
Okay.
and got a staph infection, and it was
bro.
the worst time
Bro.
ever.
Oh my
So
god.
Mike pulled me from that, and then
What the hell?
and then the next one, coward. I don't even just want to even get
Yeah,
into
fuck
that.
that guy.
The dude's a bum. Showed up like 1,000 pounds over. Commission couldn't let the fight go on.
Yeah, he's fat anyway too. So it's like you can't miss
And
weight when you're a fat
the
person.
funny part of it all is that he showed up to weigh-ins like a sad dog. Like I was supposed to feel bad for him. Like he's like, oh, like I'm sorry, bro. Like if you knew what was going on, you get it. And I was just like, I know what's going on. You missed weight.
Yeah,
Like you don't want to fight.
That's the
like,
difference.
That's
If you
okay.
knew what was going on,
Interested.
you'd make weight. But
he's an interested person. You know what I mean? Like he dabbles in MMA.
Just like again, like look, bro, we're not the same, and that's all right.
Yeah.
Like we ain't gotta be the same.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like, that's all right.
has it lit the same fire that wrestling lit for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so competitive, dude. I'm so competitive.
I think like looking back at your story, and this kind of just clicked in my head. Like I think you were like when you got here, obviously, like you were committed and you wanted to do it. You know what I mean? But I think you just now flipped the switch.
Yeah. So
I think
had to win a
you
couple fights
flipped.
first.
Yeah, I think and it takes those. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Then you
yeah.
like taste success and you're like, oh shit, I can do this. Or you go to LFA for an AMI fight where there's only 2 AMIs on the card and you see
Yeah, that's a huge
Pereira.
That's a huge stage. to be
yeah,
on.
and you
Yeah.
see Pereira backstage and you go beat somebody's ass. And
Did you fight up in Salamanca?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
yeah.
what
So I grew up in Bradford,
Yeah.
so like my buddies were actually at that fight. They were sending me pictures of with themselves and Alex.
I took a picture of them too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's awesome.
They're at that
Goes
fight.
there. Yeah, they're.
Oh man, they probably watched mine then.
I'll have to ask them.
That was the very first fight.
They train at the old gym that when I fought MMA. It's now just a jiu-jitsu and wrestling club called
Yeah.
like Salamanca Jiu-Jitsu and Wrestling, I
Yeah.
think. But a couple of those guys, they were all stoked.
Yeah. So that fight, it was a big stage. It's LFA. You know what I mean? Those are like that's like
yeah.
minor league UFC.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like an amateur, but like the guy I fought was 4-0 with 4 first-round submissions, and I was like, this dude's tough. You know what I mean? And he was coming down from 155. This was his first fight at 45, and we fought. It was a good fight, but I clearly won every round. I should have finished him, but the first thing I said when I came out of the cage, like this is just another example of like how competitive I am. I walked out of the cage and I was like, first thing I said to Mike, he's like, man, good job, like blah blah blah, and I was just like, dude, I'm disappointed.
That's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say. I think it took you to have a subpar performance in
Yes.
your head
Yeah,
for it to flip a switch.
I was
And
so
The
tight.
chip is back.
I was so tight. Like
It
I came
flipped
out of
that
there and I was
switch.
like, bro, that kid shouldn't have even been in there with me. And he is like, we're doing jujitsu, and I was like, oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was already on that before
It's,
you even.
it took him. He went out there on
So
a big
that's when
stage
it really switched
and
to
it
jiu-jitsu.
flipped it. It flipped it because he was like, yo, like I can get there and I taste it and I'm having success. But if I want to be that guy, like if I want to be headlining an LFA card, like I gotta. You knew after leaving that
Something
you
had to change.
something had to change. It's like you were committed, and then it took that thing, and then you were like, fuck it, I'm
Pick
all
it up
in.
a notch,
You were
like-
like, we got to be all in. You know what I mean? And I think everybody around you, like me, Josh, Mike, all the people that are closest to you were like it's a visual thing.
Mhm.
When it happens for you, like, and a lot of people, but I've seen it specifically happen to you twice, where it's like, oh, Luke's different. He's different than he was literally yesterday. It was like, it looks like something, it's something in his eyes. It's something like that happens.
Hmm.
And I think like it's flipped.
Mhm.
And it's gonna, you're gonna go win this fight and propel into your pro career the same way you did into Division II and a national title. I just foresee it happening.
I came out of that fight and I was like, okay, I'm better than these dudes, and I'm only committed. You know what I mean? Like this is like now I'm like in for real, and now I'm gonna start finishing dudes, and whether I'm finishing them with strikes or I'm finishing you, choking you, like whatever that is, I'm gonna finish you. Like I'm gonna find a way.
Yeah.
And now that's where my mindset changed. Like, okay, it's not enough to just win these fights for me personally. Like in my head, it's not enough for me to just win these fights. I gotta start running through guys and really like set my standard higher. Like I was talking about expectations. Like I gotta expect more. And I started expecting more from myself, like right after that fight. Literally steps out of the cage. I don't even have them like my shoes on or nothing like that yet. I was immediately like, that was disappointing. I'm
Back to
finishing
it.
guys now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember talking to you too and just being like, you know, like your weight cut didn't go great and shit like that. And like one thing I feel like, and you have to have friends that are honest with you too.
Yeah.
Like Luke's that guy for me. Like if I was fucking off and I was about to have a fight, Luke would be like, "Oh, you're fucking off." You know what I mean? And I was like, "Yeah, we can't have that again. We can't have you like having trouble with weight." And it was like a travel issue type of thing.
Yeah.
It was a weird situation. He was like, "I thought the hot tub was gonna be hot, and the hot tub not hot."
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
fought. You know what I mean? So it was that, and I think it takes you having like a quote unquote bad performance, right?
Yeah.
Most people, and it takes a certain person. Most people, they're 3-0. They go win a AMI fight in LFA.
Partying.
They're on top of the world,
Yeah.
and you know, you still party. But
Yeah.
yeah, but like, and I remember having the same exact thing in my career. I won my 3rd amateur fight, and I walked backstage, and Mike was like, "I got to keep it real with you." I was like, "That wasn't good," and I knew it too. Like, well, I knew, he knew, Will knew. I got a 2nd round finish, but we like knew
Mhm.
that it wasn't like, we were like, dude, your ceiling's here, and you performed here,
Mhm.
right? So we got to do something drastic, and that flipped the switch in me, and like it was visual, and you saw it happen. Same thing's happening for him, and he's going 247 featherweight title.
How long did you know this fight was in the works? Because you've kind of hinted over the last couple of conversations that there's some big shit that's happening, but did this kind of just come up fairly quick, or?
A couple weeks ago, we talked about it, or like a few weeks ago, I knew that I wanted to get on the card, but I was still like shopping around. Like I was trying to get back to LFA. I was trying to CFFC. Like I'm trying to go wherever I can fight.
Yeah.
Like I'm not the type of dude that's like going to fight and then be like, I'm cool for 6 months, for 9 months, a year.
Yeah.
Like that's not me. Like I'm in this thing to fight, and I'm a fighter. I'm not just like a practice room warrior. You know what I mean? Salute to those guys. That's your thing. But like, I'm not, that's not my thing. Like I'm trying to go win fights.
Mhm.
Like, and how can I do that if I'm not in fights?
What do you know about the kid that you're fighting?
I know
Other than you're gonna fucking steamroll him.
I know he's tall. I know he knocked a guy out. I know that he lost a fight by decision. I know that I'm worried about me. Like
He's not Luke Martin.
he ain't me. He hasn't, like, it's not the same. Like I look at this differently. I'm looking at this like you're
Just in the way.
you're in my way.
Yeah.
Like I'm going way, way, way to the top. And kind of you're just the guy that's kind of there right now. Like you're just kind of the guy that I'm just gonna go run right fucking through and then take whatever that belt is and then
Yeah.
fucking move it on.
Yeah.
See you later.
And a lot of people, I think, winning an AMI belt's like the culmination for them. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like I accomplished it, I did it.
I'm done.
Because you visualize it. And then like for like certain people, it's like cool. You know what I mean? Like I didn't like display my amateur belts. Like I gave them my dad.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's cool. I'm happy I won them. Like it was dope
It's
for the
dope,
time,
yeah.
right? I'm gonna use it to promote. I'm gonna put it on Instagram and blah blah blah. But like I genuinely just like it's cool.
That's
Cool.
exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Cool. Like it's not like
Yeah.
it's not like I'm like, oh, who cares about it? You know what I mean? Like it's cool. And I love that 247 is like hooking me up like with the fight, and like they're putting me on this like pedestal, and like I'm getting ready to go fight this dude and all that. And like they do a cool promotion. Like it's cool. It's not the end all be all. Like
Yeah.
it's not, I'm not like fixated on it. Like the belt is what it is. That's what you get for winning. It's like a trophy.
Is this the
Like,
first time you guys have fought on the same card?
yes.
Yeah.
How does that bring a different significance when you guys are both kind of going through this fight camp at the same time? Like,
It is a little bit, I think, because I think what's coolest about it is like we're peaking at the same time. You know what I mean? So like I had a couple weeks ago where he was like he's taking down shit, and like he was just like he was flipping that switch. Fuck. Like, where did this come from? You know what I mean? And then now I'm like flipping my switch, and we're just gonna like go together. We're gonna skyrocket together. You know what I mean? So I think because when you're in camp mode and you peak, it's like it really is. It's like flatline and peak. and going and peaking at the same time with somebody that's on your level, you're gonna peak at a way higher volume.
Mhm.
So I honestly would like, I want to schedule a fight like with him next, even if it's not on the same
Yeah.
card, like around the same
So
time.
you guys are in that
Because-
same mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because like you peak and then you kind of level off again, but you like you made gains during that camp.
Mhm.
So I think that's big. And then another thing is like, I don't gotta worry about it. It's Luke Martin. You know what I mean? And like he knows I'm gonna take care of
Yeah.
business. I know he's gonna take care of business.
I ain't gotta worry about
I've
that.
been, dude, I've had fights with my roommates get knocked out the fight before me. I've had fights where my childhood best friends get beat up before me, and I've gone out and I've performed and I've done what I'm supposed to do. I know I have a job and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it for the people in my corner. Like at the end of the day,
Mhm.
like my feelings don't fucking matter. I got a job. There's people who bought tickets. I'm gonna go out and do it. I'm gonna make my dreams come true. And no matter what happens before, it is what it is. You know what I mean? And then like it, worst case scenario, Luke takes an L that night. I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna do my job. And then first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna walk backstage, talk to Luke, check, make sure he's okay. You know what I mean? That's how it
Mhm.
works. I got a job to do. Same
It's-
thing for him.
I don't have the anxiety. Like I don't have to like be like, oh man, like that's a lot of pressure, man. He's the main event. Like, it's blah blah blah. All these lights are on and shit and all this promotion and blah blah. Like I don't have to worry about that. He's a gamer. I know he's like me. Like
Mhm.
lights are on, like I go like this. He goes like this. Like I don't have to be like, oh man, I'm so worried about
It's
Luke.
wild how those situations can shrink guys, right? Like
Yeah.
you always hear about people that are just world beaters in the gym. You hear people talk about it all the
Yeah.
time, but when they get out there, the moment crushes them.
You got to trust your training. Like if you're putting in that like real work and you know that you are, what do you got to worry about? Like it's another fight. It's another day. Like go do your thing, do what you love to do, put on, and then be out. Like it's nothing. It's another fight. Like, and all these people want to be like, oh my God, like it's like a UFC main event. And it's like, no, just do your thing, go out there, enjoy it. Like enjoy it because you don't know if you'll even get that again. And
Yeah.
and do your thing, have some fun with it, and then just be out, go home, enjoy
Get to
it.
do it.
You get to do it. It's being grateful. Like I, especially fighting, this shit can get taken away from you, boom, like that. Like you come in here, you get knocked out bad one time, or you blow your knee out. Now you're out for a year, whatever. Your shoulders, maybe you have previous injuries, like previous concussions, whatever it is. Like you have to understand that this is not like
It's not
it's
promised.
not forever. And even if you don't get hurt, even if like everything goes the way that you want it to, you see people in the UFC hanging on by a thread
Tony
to keep
Ferguson.
fighting. Tony Ferguson, like you see them hanging on by a thread to stay in the cage.
Yeah.
And it's just bad, man. Like you don't know. You just got to take every chance you get, make the most of it.
Yeah. Enjoy everything too.
Enjoy everything.
You know what I mean? I think one thing Mike and Will are really cool about, aside from like obviously being the coaches and being the mentors they know because, and I think Mike specifically because he fought, like first thing him or Will say when I walk in, they go enjoy it. Like after I win my fight and I'm walking around after the dub and you're like your ego's highest in the room and they're like enjoy it, you soak it in. You know what I mean? Because you only get so many. Like I could win 20 more fights. That's only 20 of those moments. That is so like small in the grand scheme of life. You know what I mean? So like really enjoy those moments and just like soak it in.
Yeah. You just got to make sure you make the most of this.
Yeah.
Because it's not forever.
Yeah.
And if got to be in it for the right reasons. Like I'm part of the reason I'm even in it is for those moments. Like there's nothing better than that. Like feeling like everything that I'm doing it right. And I'm doing it the right way. And I'm listening to the right people. Like I'm listening to Mike. Like I've said it before, like Mike tells me to do one thing, like I'm doing that. Like Mike tells me after that fight, we're doing jujitsu hard. I'm doing jujitsu hard. If Will wants me to like strike more, I'm striking more. Like I'm a sponge. Like
I've asked him this question before, but where do you see your biggest improvements coming as you continue to progress? Like where do you see Luke Martin taking it to that next level and getting better?
On the ground, I think the more that I focus on jujitsu, like it's gonna be hard to stop me, especially if I start clicking like the way that I'm clicking right now. it's gonna be really hard to stop me. And then if I can keep staying balanced, like not really staying balanced, but like if I can keep getting good at my striking, like on the feet, if I can get real good there too, like man, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to beat me. Like I'll take you down. You're not gonna take me down. If we're on the ground, I'm gonna smash you. Like
I think what's scariest about Luke is like his ceilings and his levels like here right now. Like and like
Still green.
same thing for me, like with college wrestling and stuff. Like when he starts getting subs off his back, like what? Like that's gonna be crazy. When
Well,
his
that's
striking,
usually where
when his
the
striking
wrestlers
gets
struggle.
when his striking gets crazy, like what are you gonna do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that like those are the moments I like. That's what I see. I'm like, this dude's like.
Well, I didn't even realize I've seen you a few times at Warren's advanced class on Monday nights up in Zealy
Yep, after LFA.
with Josh
Yeah.
a couple of times. So,
Yeah.
you know, and then it all started to click. I'm like, oh, okay, shit.
Yeah. And there's some savages in there, man.
Now there's some
That's
there's
good
some
rolls.
there's some good dudes up there.
It's good rolls in
Yeah,
there.
Zealy Mondays are infinite. Man.
Yeah, it's good rolls, man. I love it.
Yeah, I
love it.
can't wait, man. It's we're blessed. Like me, him, and Josh. Like we kind of like all found each other and we're chasing this dream. You know what I mean? And it's a cool thing. It's a rare thing. Doesn't happen. Like you know what I mean? It's a story that needs to be told because
Right.
it really doesn't. It doesn't happen. You don't meet somebody when you're 18, reconnect when you're 20, 23, 24 and be like, yeah, let's go do it. Let's go do it. Here's what we did wrong when we were 18. Let's go do it now. We got the right people. We got the right mentors. We all have a different mentality. We're all on a mission. You know what I mean?
So you're headlining.
Yeah.
Who's the co-headline?
Josh.
I think Visoki, but another pro fight just got added, so it might not. I think he's co-main. I think he's co-main, but there's a kickboxing fight somewhere in there. That's going to be after Luke. Luke's going to be the last Amy fight. He's fighting for the 45-pound belt. We got another Stout fighter, which I probably am not allowed to announce right now because he's making his amateur debut, highly anticipated. It's gonna be a Stout card. And it's gonna be sick, man. It's gonna be a hell of a night.
It's about like you were saying about like how crazy it is that like three of us are just doing that. It's you gotta find people with the same mission. You know, you gotta find people on the same wave as you and keep them close. And that's what it is. Like we're all chasing the same dream. Like he wants to be a world champion. I want to be a world champion. Josh Ramirez wants to be a world champion. Like a couple other people, like that's what it is. And I keep them close. And I look at him for advice. I look at Mike Wilkins for advice. Like I look at Will for advice. Like all of these things, like you got to keep those people close, you know? And that's just what we do. Like we just all help each other out as much as we can.
It's wild, the talent.
Yeah.
So much talent in this room.
Rising tide, it's only gonna get bigger.
Yeah.
We're gonna get imports. Once we start having success.
Fairmont still?
I think he had some like visa issues or something like
Did
that.
he leave?
Yeah, we're working it out.
We're working it out. He's
I remember Lonnie brought him over one of the podcasts he and I had. And he's like, hey, come over here. He like walks over.
What's up,
broken English.
What's up, brother?
He's hilarious.
Vermont's the
Jesus
best, brother.
Christ.
Vermont's the best.
Yeah, he is. I love him. I can't wait for him to come back.
So I sent you guys both. I've been talking to you about this for a while, but knowing you're a D2 national champ, I mean, you guys are both just wrestling heads. You've watched some of these videos, I'm imagining.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think it's funny. He's like just making content out of just like civilians. Like,
yeah, it's hilarious.
Because the thing about him is that he was really good in high school.
Did you know who he was?
Yeah, I knew who he was. I knew his name. Like you probably didn't know me, but he was like in the top 5 in the country. Like he was like really good when we were in high school. Like when I placed at Flow Nationals, like my junior year of high school, I think he won or like got second. He might have been in the finals. I don't know. He was really good.
What's his name?
Georgiopoulos.
Okay.
He was really good. I think he ended up
Was he like a 60 something
70 pounder or something like that.
He looks like he's 205 now.
He may have went to Ohio State or something like that. I know he wrestled at Cleveland State briefly, but I don't know exactly where he started off at, what his like path was, but he found a way. And on IG, man, he's killing it. Like he's just wrestling these dudes that don't wrestle.
Dude, so some people like, and social media can be something you're obsessed with too. Like,
Yeah.
like you look at
Oh, I
Jake,
love
you
it.
look at Logan and Jake Paul, like those
Yeah.
dudes figured it out. You know what I mean? They wrestled.
They smashed
yeah.
it. They hit it out of the park.
Yeah,
no
they
matter
hit
how
it,
you
yeah.
feel about it.
Yeah, no matter how you feel about it, they found a path. They grinded. They were obsessed.
Dude, he's
and-
fighting
and
Mike
made it.
Tyson.
Knocked
Yeah,
that out of the
I
park.
don't know how I feel about that for
Yeah,
Mike,
I'm
but
very like not
I
happy
think
about it.
Mike
but-
Tyson's going to get beat, and I don't
Yeah.
want to see Mike Tyson get knocked out. Like that would
Yeah.
just be horrible to watch.
It'd
But
be
yeah,
tough for
no,
me too, yeah.
absolutely.
I'm not a huge fan of it.
No,
But like, they make him. Hey,
I was telling Lucas, I was like, I don't know, man. Maybe we gotta throw some money in a pool and fly you guys out to California after this fight and have somebody go and disrupt. I don't know that he would post that on his social media, given how he handles everything.
we
but-
could though. We'll have content.
Yeah, we'll go out there,
We'll
though.
go that.
Yeah.
We'll,
What's up?
we'll collab with it. He would probably be cool with it. You know what I mean?
He seems like a cool dude.
Wrestlers would be about it. You know what I mean?
Dude,
You're like, yeah, well, I got a D2.
He's had a
national
couple
champ
where
coming
I'm
out.
like, oh shit, like he's not just dicking around. Like some of them, he like gives him his leg. He's like, here, go ahead, and he's just
Yeah.
he's quick, he's strong.
I should have got on that, man. He stole my flow. I should have done it.
he stole my.
It's funny. He's fun because I was watching like months and months ago. He was just outside on grass, and he's like, take me down for $100. Now he's in this like turf grass
Uh-huh.
at a creator's house.
Yeah.
It's like a content creation where a bunch
Yeah.
of people probably live, like one of them TikTok houses,
Yeah.
and it's like take me down for $1,000,
Uh-huh.
and it's like bro's making some cash.
You know,
on
and
social
now that I
media.
think about it, he actually wasn't first.
No, Dylan Palacio.
Dylan Palacio.
Yeah, Dylan
exactly.
Palacio was the first dude. Yeah,
He wasn't.
Dylan Palacio, and he wore this obnoxiously like skinny like singlet, and he's jacked. He like ripped.
And he was
I
all
remember
American
seeing
at
that.
Cornell.
All American at Cornell. Dude's hilarious. And yeah, he would just walk up to random like strangers and he would fuck with people hard.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't like this. I don't know much about because I haven't watched a ton of Giorgio's videos, but Dylan Palacio was like fighting guys. He was
yeah.
he was being
Yeah.
obnoxious about it. But Palacio got big off of that, and Palacio's like used his like social media following and do some pretty cool things since then. So yeah, man, there's
He has like a charity.
a
fund.
lot of wrestlers, man. There's a lot of wrestlers that go like Johnny DeJoyous. Johnny DeJoyous has done a lot
Mhm.
from his following. He's like he jumps off of buildings, planes, and shit like
No
that.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, now he's like in Jake Paul's crew. The Paul brothers wrestle in Ohio.
Mhm.
There's this thing that's instilled in you when you're in a 5-year-old in a wrestling room trying to kill another 5-year-old with your dad watching,
Mhm.
getting yelled at, that
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
transcends over your entire life, and you figure it out. And I think we figured it out with Fight. And that's where
I think like you guys said maybe a couple shows ago like how me and Lucas could fight and like just be chill still.
Yeah.
That's a wrestling thing. That's totally a wrestling thing.
Yeah.
Like I've been wrestling my friends and fighting my friends since I was a child. So like if we had to fight, like I mean obviously I don't want to fight him, but like if
Yeah.
it came down to like UFC world title, you know what I mean? I'm sure we could fight and just be like, yeah, man, that fight was crazy.
Yeah, we'd
Like,
be
and just hang
cool.
out after.
Yeah, we could have a beer after. I'd be like, damn, bro.
Like damn.
I didn't know you'd send that head kick. That's
Yeah,
that's
right.
crazy. Would you like I did that?
Right. And it could just be chill.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's really cool. And so this is it fights in Coriopolis.
Yeah, the fights in Coriopolis,
what's the
Robinson area, the greater Pittsburgh sports complex.
Okay.
Yeah, it's October 26th, so the weekend before Halloween. We got some pretty dope stuff, coming along with that. If you guys are interested, buy tickets from me or Luke. We'll have tickets on. We got QR codes around the gym.
Yeah.
And same thing, like I said with Anthony, like this is how we transcend into the bigger promotions. This is how we, propel our careers. And, that's how I've got to headline shows because I sold tickets when I was making my pro debut.
Right.
And now I'm in a position where I'm headlining shows and,
Dude, they put on a great event.
They do put
That
on-
Monroeville card. That was fucking
Yeah,
awesome.
that was fire.
It sucked how the main event kind of happened. I mean,
Yeah,
shit
right.
happens, but
That's
I took my brother and he was like, fuck.
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Environment's
like, this is
crazy.
great.
And
It's packed.
Another
Half of
thing,
the people there were from Stout.
right? Exactly. And another thing is, get your tickets and come watch this fight because we ain't gonna be fighting here for
Yeah.
forever. Like,
Yeah.
look, it's only gonna get more expensive. Like soon, he's gonna be in the UFC, and you're gonna have to pay an arm and a leg to come watch that.
Yeah.
So get your tickets now. Come to the 247 event. Watch me win a belt, and then watch Visoki win, and then watch Lucas win. And
Yeah, it's gonna be a good
great
night. It's gonna be a good night. It might be the best night in Stout MMA history.
No,
Maybe.
it'll be fire. I've heard a
Yeah.
lot about Visoki. I saw somebody wearing one of his shirts the other day.
We're redoing the like Mike Wilkins had it where he had like a crew, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And we're making it happen. We're making it happen again. We're bringing back Stouts MMA. And hopefully, you know, we make it further, you know, and that being guided by somebody that like, you know, didn't make their dreams come true
Mhm.
and didn't accomplish the stuff in MMA. I think that's what's really gonna like propel us to the next level.
Exactly.
Dude, Mike's hungry.
Yeah.
Mike
can tell.
and Will are hungry to get us through. And I think that's like the driving force behind all of it.
And they authentically want us to win.
Yeah.
Like it's not like superficial, or like it's not like they want to just be like to a certain spot where he can still like, you know, be like, oh, I was better though. But like, no, they want us to go to the moon, like as far as we can go.
It's the perfect
Like,
recipe.
And I
It
love
really is.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome to watch, and being able to have conversations with some of these guys. I think I want to have Mike and Will on
Yeah.
soon. I think
Yeah.
Should.
I think having the four of us on there would be
Yeah, we can
fucking
figure it
awesome
out.
to
Definitely
talk
should.
about.
Definitely should.
You know, that'd be a really good conversation, because there is a lot that comes from them.
And they're
And
hilarious.
just taking Mike was kind of jumped in for Warren on Monday
Uh-huh.
last week in the class. I was just like, God, he's just so fucking enthusiastic about everything he does. It's so much intensity.
Yeah.
I would love to fight for somebody like that.
It makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, it
For
makes
sure.
it easier, you know, when you're like, I don't want to go to practice. You're like, yeah, at least I get to hang out with Mike.
Yeah.
Right.
There's times where you're like, I don't want to
Exactly.
go, and then you're like, I get the bullshit with Mike about wrestling or
Yeah.
whatever.
At least we'll kick it.
Yeah, at
Like,
least
if
I get to
nothing
kick it with
else,
my
like,
homies.
we'll kick
You know what I
Like,
mean?
like this kind of sucks right now, but like we'll kick it. So,
Yeah.
like, and that's fine.
Sponsors?
Yeah. Shout out to Longevity Life. They hooked me up with the meals, and I appreciate him. I just talked to him on the phone yesterday about, you know, what we're gonna do going forward and stuff. And I appreciate him. And Switch Custom Apparel. He always does my shorts. And yeah, he loves the fights. And my manager Brandon, Arsenal Sports Agency. He manages Dustin Poirier. Like the agency manages Dustin Poirier, Aljamain Sterling. A lot of
Is
big
that
guys.
Tiki's?
Yeah,
group?
Tiki.
Okay.
Yeah, Tiki's one of my managers too. Like it's cool, like to like see like myself in that. So
Yeah.
shout out to them. Yeah, that's Seven Ranges. A restaurant and bar my friend owns in up near Weirden, Steubenville area. So shout out to them. It's good to me. So shout out to them. I'm always looking for more sponsors though. So, you know, if you want to get in with me, you're a business, reach out to me.
Hit him up now.
Hit me up now.
Hit him up now before he takes off.
Hit me up now
Got
before it gets crazy.
I'll list my sponsors for this upcoming fight. Probably next podcast I'll have it all
Okay.
finalized and stuff.
Cool.
But yeah, man, buy some tickets. And you know, come watch me and Luke put on a show.
Get active.
Get active.
Get active.
Dude, hey, thank you
throw
for
down.
coming on. I
Thank you for
appreciate it.
having me, man.
Oh, dude,
Yeah,
absolutely.
thank you guys for having me, man. This was
Been
fun.
really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, this was fun. I liked it.
All right.